Hello everyone, Mrs. Beckman here. Welcome to our lesson today. We just had our Chapter 6 Part 1 test yesterday, and just a kind of a recap, that was how to solve systems of equations, which again is an equal in the middle, versus a system of inequalities, which is like a greater than or less than. But we learned how to solve both of those systems by graphing. And we are done with solving systems of inequalities for now. We're going to go back to solving systems of equations. So we learned how to do it by graphing. However, that's not always the best method. Sometimes we don't have a graph. Sometimes the graph is getting too big, or it's just our lines are too different and we need a different method of solving them. Okay, so we're going to learn two other methods of how to solve a system of equations. We're going to start with how to solve them by using substitution. And you guys know what a substitute teacher is. It's somebody that fills in for a teacher who is out that day. Math, same way. You guys have learned how to substitute in numbers for variables and that kind of thing. So we're going to be doing that a lot in this lesson. And our theme today is mice. So we've got some mice jokes here. What do angry mice send to each other in December? Well, it's not Christmas cards, it's cross mouse cards. All right, what do sheep say to shepherds during the holidays? You have to know what sound a sheep makes. And this is seasons bleedings. All right, let's go through our steps. Keep in mind, these steps were made by me. These are not necessarily steps that you will find in a textbook. They're just kind of something I found that has worked throughout the years. All right, step one is to find the equation that has a variable all by itself on one side. Because I have nothing better to call it, I'm going to call it the magic equation today, because it has special powers. All right, once you find the magic equation and you identify that one, we're going to take that magic equation and we're going to substitute in that magic equation into the other equation. And then we're going to solve. Now, here's what you have to be very careful of today. So we learned how to solve a system of equations by graphing. Now, when you graph two lines, almost always, unless there was no solution or infinitely many solutions, they crossed at one point. And when we named that point before, we would always do an x comma y. Keep that in mind today. We are still dealing with two lines and they're still going to cross at an x comma y. They're going to cross at a point. So today we should always have a point. So step 4, which is the step a lot of people forget about, is to plug in the variable that you just solved for back into the magic equation to find the other variable. So you're going to get x, and then to find y, you got to plug it back into the magic. All right, so let's take a look at just what this looks like actually. So step 1 is to identify the magic equation. And the magic one is the one, there is one equation here that has a variable all by itself on one side. It could have x by itself or it could have y by itself. In this case, it's the first equation because it has the y all by itself. So this is the magic equation. Okay, so that was step 1, to identify the magic equation. All right, step 2, we're going to plug that magic equation into the other equation. Okay, so here's what I do. I find in the magic the variable that is all by itself, so y. Down below, I cross out that letter, and instead I put parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this. 7x minus parentheses equals 15. Okay, so all I did was take out that letter. Now, that letter, what I'm going to substitute in for it, hence the name substitution today, it was a y, I'm going to plug in what y equaled in the magic equation. Y equaled 2x. So I'm going to plug in 2x there. And this is the equation that I'm going to have to solve. So 7x minus 2x is going to give me 5x's. Now, this one did not matter if I had the 2x in parentheses or not, but this will be very important in later problems. So get used to putting that parentheses like I said earlier. Okay, so back to solving this equation. We had 7x minus 2x plus 5x's equals 15. And if I'm solving that, I had one step left of dividing by 5 to get our answer of x equals 3. Now, a lot of people will stop here, but remember we said that our answer is always going to be a point, an x and a y. So we just found the x only. So to get the y, you go back to the magic equation, and I'm just going to rewrite it here. I know that y equals 2 times x. Well, I now know what x is. We found that x was 3. So I'm going to put in a 3 there for the x, and that's going to give us our y. 2 times 3, which is 6. So I now have my final answer of 3, 6. And I'll show you this for just the first one, but these are very easy to check. Last chapter we talked about how to know if a point was a solution. It had to work in both equations. So if I take both equations and plug in the 0.36, it should work. All right, so let's plug it into the first one, which was y equals 2x. So 6 equals 2 times 3. Well, that worked. So that was good for that one. Let's plug it into the second one. That was 7 times x, which is 3, minus y, which is 6, should equal 15. Well, 7 times 3 is 21, minus 6. That does equal 15. So I know for sure that this point is a solution to both of them. And this is the only answer. Again, if that was a test or quiz, it'd be really smart to check your answers. All right, so let's try a few more. Step 1, find your magic equation. In this case, it's the second one. Which letter is all by itself? The x. Okay, so what I do is I go back to the first one, I take out the x, and I put in parentheses there. So I'm going to rewrite that equation, but with parentheses. So 2 parentheses plus 6y equals 15. Again, I just wrote that exact equation, but I put parentheses where that x was. All right, now I look at the magic equation. I knew that x equals 2y. So instead of the x, I'm going to put in a 2y. And the whole being of why I do this is because I can't solve an equation. Both of these equations have 2 different variables. I don't want there to be 2 variables. I can't solve it. So that's the whole purpose of why we're doing this. We're eliminating one of the variables so that it's the same variable that I can now solve an equation for. All right, so let's solve this equation. 2 times 2y is 4y plus 6y equals 15. 4y plus 6y, well, that's 10y equals 15. And if I divide by 10 here, I would get 15 over 10, but if I simplify that by dividing them both by 5, that would give me 3 over 2, or 1.5, or 1.5. Again, keep in mind, our answer should be a point, and we just found y. So y is 1.5. Okay, to find the other one, go back to your magic equation. I'm going to copy it down. X equals 2y. Plug in what we just found. So we found y, which was 1.5. So if I double 1.5 here, that would give me 3. So my answer, final answer here, is the 0.3 comma 1.5. All right, let's try a few more. This is actually one that you guys did last year in pre-algebra. We're looking for an equation that has a variable all by itself. Well, in this case, they both have a y all by itself. So just pick one to be your magic. I'm going to pick the first one since it came first. Okay, I'm going to do exactly what we did before. Find the variable that's all by itself. Cross out the variable that's all by itself in the other one, and we're going to put in parentheses where that variable was. All right, so I would rewrite that equation. Parentheses equals 7x plus 12. Now what goes in that parentheses is what's in the magic equation. That's where it gets all its power. All right, so instead of y, I'm going to put in what y equals. So in this case, 5x minus 8. All right, and this is the equation that we're going to have to solve. Don't really need the parentheses in this one, but again, that's kind of on questions to come where you're going to need those parentheses. So I would subtract 7x here. That would give me negative 2x minus 8 equals 12. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. That would be negative 2x equals 20. I would divide by negative 2 to get an answer of negative 10. Keep in mind, we just found half of our answer now. We found our x of negative 10. To now find the y, go back to your magic equation. So y equals 5x minus 8. Plug in what you know. So we just found x, which was negative 10. And if I solve this equation, I would get negative 50 minus 8, or that's the same as negative 58. So our final answer would be negative 10, comma, negative 58. All right, we're going to try 2 more that are a little bit trickier. All right, so step 1 again, find your magic. Our magic is the bottom one here. Find the letter that's all by itself. Cross it out in the other problem and put in parentheses. This one, if you don't put in parentheses, you're going to get this one wrong. All right, so 2 parentheses plus 2y equals 3. And in that parentheses, instead of the x that was there, I'm going to plug in what x equals from. You got it. My magic equation. So x was negative 1 plus 4y. The parentheses are important because the first thing you're going to do when you see parentheses is that we have to distribute that 2. So to solve this, we'd get negative 2 plus 8y plus 2y equals 3. Combine my like terms. That would give us negative 2 plus 10y equals 3. Keep going here. Add 2 to both sides. That would give us 10y equal to 5. And last step, which is always a step people want to make a mistake on right here, divide by 10. Everybody wants to say this is 2, but 5 divided by 10 is actually 1/2. Again, we got half of it. Got to find the second half. We just found our y, which is 1/2. Go back to your magic. Our magic said x should equal negative 1 plus 4y, and we just found what y was. So negative 1 plus 4 times 1/2. 4 times 1/2, or half of 4, is 2, and negative 1 plus that gives us an answer of 1 for our x. So final answer here is 1, comma, 1/2. All right, let's try one more similar to that one. Okay, find magic equation. In this case, it's the bottom one. Y is all by itself. So I'm going to go up to the other equation and cross out y and instead put parentheses. All right, so let's rewrite this. Negative 3x minus 3 parentheses equals 3. And in that parentheses, I'm going to put what y equals from the magic equation. So the magic equation said y equals negative 5x minus 17. All right, first step in solving this is to distribute. All right, so I'm going to bring down my negative 3x. All right, negative 3 times negative 5, that would give me a positive 15x. And I'm going to do a little workout to the side here. 17, well, I know a negative times a negative is a positive. 17 times 3 would give me 21. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 would be 51 here. Equals 3. All right, so to solve this, combine my like terms. Negative 3x plus 15x, that gives me 12x's plus 51 equals 3. I would subtract 51. That would give me 12x equals negative 48. I would divide by 12. I would get an answer of negative 4 for my x. But again, you always need to find a point. So we just found our x of negative 4. To find the y, go back to your magic. Y equals negative 5x minus 17. But we're going to plug in what x equals this time, which we just found x to be negative 4. And if I solve this, negative 5 times negative 4 is 20 minus 17. Y is going to be 3 here. So negative 4, 3 is my final answer on that one. All right, hopefully this is starting to make sense. I'm going to do one last one that's a word problem, just to practice that, because eventually we'll be doing almost all word problems with these. So this is kind of an introduction of what's to come. All right, it says Margie is responsible for buying a week's supply of food and medication for the dogs and cats at a local shelter. The food and medication for each dog cost twice as much as those supplies for a cat. Okay, so I'm going to use C and D for cats and dogs. Okay, so C is going to represent the food and medical supplies for cats, and D is going to be the food and medication for the dogs. Now, dogs cost twice as much as those for a cat. So dog costs, and so in other words, dogs equals twice as much as it did for a cat. So I have to take the cats and double it, and that would give me the dog. So that would be one equation. Remember, these should generate a system of equations. So we just found one. All right, she needs to feed 164 cats and 24 dogs. Her budget is $4,240. Okay, so how much can she spend on each dog for food and medication? All right, so she has to feed 164 cats, and this is where we're going to put it into standard form. That would be 164C plus the 24 dogs that we have to feed. So 24 times however much we're spending on the dogs is going to equal our total budget of $4,240. All right, in the end, I just want to know how much she can spend on each dog. So I don't need to know the cats. I'm going to go ahead and write it as a point, or to get both cats and dogs, but in the end, I really only have to answer the dog part of this question. Okay, so step 1, find your magic. That's the first one. It's D, so find the variable that's all by itself, take it out of the other one. Rewrite the problem. So 164C plus 24 parentheses equals 4,240. In the parentheses, we go back to our magic equation and we plug in what the dogs equal, which is 2C, double the cats. All right, so if I'm solving this, I have 164C plus 24 times 2 is 48C equals 4,240. All right, combine your like terms. 164 plus 48 gives us 212C. That equals 4,240. And I would then divide it by 212. I'm going to cheat here and use my calculator. So 4,240 divided by 212 gave us an answer of 20. Now notice that's how much money I'm going to spend on C, the cats. So each cat can have $20 worth of food and medication. But I don't want to know what a cat costs. I want to know what a dog costs. So go back to your magic equation to figure out dogs. So dog is double what a cat was. So I'm going to take the cat, which was 20, and multiply it by 2. So that would give us $40. So how much can Margie spend on each dog? That would be a final answer of $40. All right, and these are a little bit tougher. We will be practicing these types of equations a lot and setting them up. That a lot of time is the hardest part. All right, but we'll end on a joke here. Why do mummies like the holidays so much? I bet you guys can get this one. Because of all the wrapping. And where did mistletoe go to become famous? To Hollywood. All right, so tonight's homework, it's kind of combined with tomorrow night's homework. It's the same worksheet, but on tonight you only have to do 1 through 5 and also one word problem number 13. All right, please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. All right, hope to see you guys soon.